dragging someone, reading them for filth, totally decimating somebody. What are we doing? What the fuck is this? Today's video is about social media hate, and not necessarily any of my own. I think a lot of people make these videos because they get under attack for something, and so there's this defensiveness about it and this frustration, and they're coming from this place of really wanting to protect themselves and justify whatever they're getting hate about. I've been really fortunate. I don't think I've ever had anybody be really nasty to me on social media. I've never gotten like a mean comment. I'm not asking for one now. I think a lot of people would say, well, you know, it comes with the territory. And I guess in a way it sort of does. Like, that just makes me really sad to think about life in that way. But this is a relatively new concept, and yet it's also not. Social media hate came with whenever the invention of the comment section showed up. But even before that, I think, you know, message boards was probably wherever people could create what they call user-generated content. The forum was opened, and the anonymous forum, let me add, was open for people to kind of just express themselves however they wanted. That anonymity, of course, is really important. And I think when people talk about social media hate and they talk about mean comments and stuff like that, that often comes up of like, well, you're just safe behind your computer screen. What's interesting, though, is when people are doing it with their identities attached. People have like Facebook-enabled comments, or they have a real presence on YouTube or your Instagram profile, whatever it may be. There's some attachment to their identity. What an incredible evolution we've had in social media hate and user-generated hate, that we go from message boards where you're just a name, you're just a handle, right? To now you can have an entire profile with pictures of your family and information about where you live and where you work, and then you'll leave some nasty fucking comment on somebody's blog post or on somebody else's Facebook or wherever, and it's like, wow, the anonymity factor isn't even a factor anymore. So what is this? What is social media hate all about? Where does it come from? One of the things that I was thinking about with this was like, well, what are the roots of it? And it made me think of, the only thing I could really come up with was really like tabloids, gossip, critics, things that existed when the media was a little bit more narrow and a little bit more linear, when people could only be in the media if they were on TV, or they were in movies, or they were in theater, or they were a musician, some sort of performer in the public eye. That seemed to always come with this, and again, this idea of comes with the territory, right? That came with the territory of critics. Like, if you're going to put yourself out there, you're going to open yourself up to critics commenting on it. We really get excited about two different storylines. We get excited about watching somebody who's up and coming, and we get excited about watching somebody fall. The media and response and critics are really part and parcel to that. They are the deciding factor in a lot of ways as to whether you are up and coming or whether you are going down. Whereas in the past, where it was really limited to performers and people in the public eye and critics and tabloids and magazines and all that shit. Now, if there's a level playing field with things like YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and Vine and Snapchat and Periscope, whatever, all these things, we can broadcast ourselves, we can put ourselves out there. There are people out there on YouTube with millions and millions of followers watching every one of their videos. It's incredible. It's a really incredible time that we live in, and it's so exciting to see this evolution. I think we are going to move into such an expanded version of what we're in now. What scares me about that, and what is really, it's just really disconcerting about all of that, is what does that say, or what does that mean for comment sections and internet hate and fighting and Twitter fights and comments of people telling someone to kill themselves, and again, all these terms that all feel appropriated from other cultures and other groups of people, but we're all using them now. I don't even know what the fuck a clapback is. I can't figure out in my mind when I picture it. That is it that? Are you clapping at someone? I feel like a baby. That doesn't seem aggressive. And so as we move into a time where the format and the forum for this is only increasing and there's only more space for it, it really begs the question, how do we respond to it? Because I think internet hate has gone from something where people are like, well, there's just trolls, there's just always trolls out there, to becoming really an insidious part of any sort of media creation. I'm a huge fan of RuPaul's Drag Race, right? And that show has a huge social media following. And really in the last couple of seasons, their social media following has really expanded and grown. And what's come with that is a lot of really nasty comments and a lot of really hateful things being said about contestants on the show and about people involved with the show. People saying that, like, oh, this this queen didn't do very well in this episode or whatever, like she should just fucking kill herself. And what's more about that is that this growth is coming from a younger population of people. I mean, this is like, I mean, I don't want to say this is the future. These are people who are, you know, teenagers into their 20s, whatever, and this is not everybody, and there's lots of assholes who are older than that, so, you know. But what does that say? What does that mean? I mean, people talk about the millennial generation, which I'm kind of like on the edge of. I'm 31, so I'm kind of like, you know, I remember life before the internet, but I mostly have life with it. This millennial generation is like the new baby boomer generation. It's the new large generation of people. It's the new cultural shift. So they talk about these different generations, you know, the me generation and Generation Y. Like the millennial generation is really significant because they exist and have grown up in a time of accelerated change. Things change so much faster now. This is a generation that is accelerating really fast and growing really fast and moving with the times really quickly. I guess I'm just kind of noticing that what comes with those times is this internet hatred. And so my question is this: is social media hate a new concept that has only developed because of social media? Social media has created a platform for people to be awful. Is it because we have the platform, or is social media just a convenient way to express a level of pain and anger and frustration and discrimination and confusion? Is social media really just giving us a larger perspective on just how much pain we are in? I was going to say how hateful we are. I was going to say how mean we are. I was going to say how angry we are. And I think anger is maybe the closest, but I really go back to pain. And that's what I see with social media hate, is that we are getting this really broad perspective to how much pain people are in. Because as hard as it is sometimes, I don't believe that anyone is just an asshole. I think that's very reductive. I think that's too simplistic. I don't think it's a really smart perspective. I don't think you're giving credit to the fact that everybody's a human being. And I think this is an Oprah quote, but you know, she's spot on, like hurt people hurt people. And I know that's a little bumper stickery, but it's true. All of this comes from pain. That's really kind of fascinating to me, that social media hate and these trolls and people telling people to kill themselves and death threats. People give death threats. It's so fucked up that all of that is coming from this incredible well of pain. As dark as that is, and as easy as it would be to just turn your back on it, I have tried to sort of like just not go into comment sections, not see what people are talking about, not expose myself to it. But I have to say, probably in the last month or two, it was like I totally flipped, and I have been fascinated with comment sections. I've been fascinated with people and the extent to which they go in these comments and the arguments that they get into and the absolutely awful things people say because they have the liberty to. I definitely get to that mindset of like, God, that guy is such a fucking asshole. But that is too simple. Someone saying you should just go fucking kill yourself is in a tremendous amount of pain. And I don't know what you do with that information. I don't know what the next step is. I just think it's really important, if we're going to move forward into a world where this is more of the norm, where this is, as people are saying, this just comes with the territory. It's now something to talk about. So it's becoming so much more of a norm that I guess my question is, at what point do we deal with it? I think right now we're in this time where it's like, well, it's on the internet, you know, big deal. It's not real. Just don't look at it. I think that point of view is getting dated. The more our lives are happening online and the more in real life is this kind of like, it's sort of fetishized. It's sort of this novelty of like, oh, I'm going to go meet people in the real world, IRL, you know? Like reality is becoming this thing you kind of log on to. Whereas again, I remember when it was the internet that you logged onto. I mean, that's a perfect example. Like when I was a kid, we had to go through the arduous process of logging onto America Online, using the telephone line, and hoping, you know, Mom, get off the phone, I need to use the internet, blah, blah, blah. That whole joke that everybody keeps telling. But now, we are always on the internet. We're always logged on. So long as we have Wi-Fi, so long as we have a phone in our pocket, we are always logged on. And so this is becoming more a part of our norm. I just saw this video on Facebook about how there's this like wristband that I guess syncs up with your phone, that you can just shake the wristband and a projection of your phone shows up on your arm, and then you can just use that. And so that we are one step closer to just having the thing fucking implanted in your arm. And I'm not even being, I'm not joking. Like we're really moving towards that. And so as we move more and more towards this connected life, and we know that this kind of behavior is is only going to continue with it, what are the next steps? I almost want to say, how do you police it? But I don't know if it's police. Maybe it is. It's something that I'm very fixated on right now, because the reality is, like, you can't police it. You can't police it. Things move too fast now. We can't keep up with it. And so there's never really a way to control this. But what it does highlight is that behind those comments, behind that avatar, behind all of that nastiness is a human being. That ultimately, at the end of the day, the internet's not real. We may spend more of our life on it than we used to, but it's still not real. Whatever reality is, I think we're closer to it when we're not connected to the internet. And so there is still a human being sitting there behind the computer or on their phone or whatever. And it's that human being that I'm interested in. It's understanding that human being and knowing where they're coming from and knowing how to communicate with them. I think that, in a way, as much as we are moving further and further away from just being a human being in the real world, the more I feel like the solution to the problems that come with that involve going back to the human being. Because internet hate is just a product of internal pain. And it's that internal pain that is the head of the serpent. I think there's other ways you can police it, but at the end of the day, what this has highlighted is there's a lot of people in pain right now. And to start humanizing internet hate. I think that's really important. Start humanizing internet hate. We're not just avatars. So what are your thoughts? What do you think? What's your response to internet hate? Do you think everybody's just an asshole? Do you think it comes from a source of pain? How do you police it? How do you handle it? Where do you think we're gonna go? I'm throwing a lot of questions at you. Answer one, answer all of them. Let me know in the comments what you think. And if this is interesting to you, if this is a conversation you like to have, subscribe and we can, have that internet form of conversation about it. And if you want to have a more direct conversation, I have a free private Facebook group called the Awakening Artist Collective. And there's a link in the description below. We could totally get into this conversation there as well. Anyway, that's all for now. Take care. Bye.